Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom and welcome back to today's Daf Yomi, which is YOMA Gimel. We are 4 lines from the top of the Amud, and perhaps before we continue, let's conduct a brief review of the Gemara up until this point. The Mishnah tells us 7 days prior to Yom Kippur, they would separate the Kohen Gadol from his home, put him in Lishkas Parhedrin in the Beis Hamikdash, in order to prepare him properly for the upcoming event, the Avodah of Yom Kippur. The Gemara actually tells us that the makor for this concept is miluim. We find there as well they would separate the Kehanim, place them in the Mishkan for 7 days as a preparation for that special day of Vayhi Bayim Hashmini. So it was a prisha of 7 days in anticipation of 1 day. Here as well, we do a prisha of 7 days in anticipation of Yom Kippur. We learn this from the extra words mentioned by the Parshas Miluim. We have the pasuk which says that apply this method elsewhere. L'chaper, the Gemara says l'chaper is Yom Kippur. How do we know it's Yom Kippur? Maybe other Yom Tovim. Gemara tells us, firstly, it needs to be time related, not more than once a year, but maybe Pesach and Sukkot work. Well, over there we're speaking about a 7-day event, and it doesn't really fit the bill. It needs to be a 7-day preparation for a 1-day event. What about Shmini Atzeres, which is a 1-day Yom Tov? The Gemara gave us 2 answers for that. Number 1, Shmini Atzeres has Kedusha Lefanav. It's preceded by days of Kedusha, which is not very similar to Miluim or to Yom Kippur. Second teretz was, you can't say that the Iker Yom Tov won't need Prisha, won't need that separation, meaning if Sukkot doesn't need it, you can't really say that Shmini Atzeres, which is merely a tuffle to Sukkot, would require, it can't stand higher than the Iker of Yom Tov. And the Gemara tells us that even Shmini Atzeres, which is regarded as a separate entity, but it's only somewhat separate. But when it comes to carbon-related aspects, for instance, Tashlumin, if one fails to bring his Chagiga throughout Yom Tov, he'll bring it on Shmini Atzeres. Apparently there's some relation, and Shmini Atzeres is considered a tuffle to Sukkot. And once we conclude that no separation, no Prisha is required for Sukkot, it's unfathomable to say that would apply to the secondary, the tuffle aspect of Sukkot, which is Shmini Atzeres. So that cancels that out. Says the Gemara, what about other options? Shavuos, Rosh Hashanah. Let's see the Gemara. 4 lines from the top, Ve'ema Atzeres. What about requiring Prisha prior to Shavuos? So when we have a pasuk by Miluim which tells us, apply this procedure elsewhere, L'chaper, perhaps for the kapara, for the karbanos of Shavuos, not Yom Kippur. Ve'ema Atzeres, the Prisha Shiva, L'yom Echadu, there as well. It fits the formula. It would be a 7-day Prisha in preparation of 1 day. Amrab Abba, there's a reason why we prefer Yom Kippur. Done in par echad v'ayil echad. Mi par echad v'ayil echad. You see, on Yom Kippur, the Kohen Gadol will bring 1 par, 1 ayil, and this is similar to Miluim, which likewise had this feature, 1 par, 1 ayil. So we learn one from the other. Done in par echad v'ayil echad. We learn Yom Kippur, which features this type of carbon. Mi par echad v'ayil echad from Miluim, which also features this carbon. Lafuki Atzeres, as opposed to Atzeres, the Shnei Elim Ninu. Over there it's 2 Elim. It's not 1, it's 2. So it's different than Miluim. Therefore we choose to compare Yom Kippur to Miluim rather than Shavuos to Miluim. This works according to the Shita who says, Yom Kippurim Ayil Echadu. On Yom Kippur we only had 1 ayil. But according to the Shita, that there were 2 rams brought on Yom Kippur, Michael and Meimar, then the formula falls apart. It's no longer similar to Miluim. Where do we find this discussion? The Sanya. Rabbi Omer Ayil Echad. It's really 1 ayil. Hu ha'omer kan. The same ayil mentioned here in Pashas Achrei Mois, describing the Avodah of Yom Kippur. It's that very same one which is Hu ha'omer b'chumash ha'pkudim, which is spoken about in Chumash Pkudim, Chumash Bamidbar. Pkudim are the counting. So in Bamidbar we have the Pashas Pinchas, gives us the comprehensive list of karbonos musaf brought throughout the Yom Tovim, and there as well the pasuk mentions a carbon of an ayil. Says Rebbe, it's one and the same. It's the same ayil mentioned here and there. Rav Lezer, Rav Shimon, Shnei Elimheim. They're actually 2 separate ones. Echad Amar Khan, one is mentioned here in Parashas Achrei Mois. Ve'echad ha'omer b'chomesh ha'pkudim. And there's another one down by Midbar in Parshas Pinchas. Two separate ones. So according to Rabbi Shimon, we no longer have that equation. We can no longer compare Yom Kippur to Miluim, because unlike Miluim, where there was only one ayil, Yom Kippur has two. So why do we prefer applying Miluim to Yom Kippur rather than to Shavuos, which also had two Elam? Afilu Teimar Reb Shimon. This can be working. This can follow even Reb Shimon's shita. You see, even though there were two Elam, but each one performed a different function. One was Chayvas Hayyim, one was Musaf. You see, on Yom Kippur we had three different levels of karbanis. One is, let's call it the routine karbanis, like you would bring on an ordinary day. Tamid Shel Shachar, Tamid Shel Ben Arbayim. There's even a question as to whether the Kohen Gadol is required to bring those karbanis. So those are the standard routines. Then we have something called Musaf. Musaf, you ever wondered why it's called Musaf? Musaf means it's a supplemental carbon. It's in addition to the standard routine. Musaf is generally brought on Shabbos, Rosh Chodesh, Yom Tov, and Yom Kippur is no different than the Yom Tov. It has Musaf. So it's the expanded routine, so to speak. Then we have something called Chayvas Hayyim, something which comes to address the uniqueness of that specific day, that specific Yom Tov. For instance, on Shavuos you have the carbon of the Shtei HaLechem, which was meant to bring bracha and parnas of Klal Yisrael. With that you have two Elam. So that's not Musaf. That's something meant to bring down the hashpah, the kedusha of that specific day. On Yom Kippur as well, we have things which are called avodas hayom, chayvas hayom, on account of the unique features and the power of Yom Kippur, which is to bring about kapara for Klal Yisrael. Says the Gemara, although Rabbi Shimon says that on Yom Kippur we have two rams, two elim, but it wasn't like we have two. It wasn't a double dose. Each one played a different role, performed a different function. Chad l'chayvas hayom, v'chad l'musafin. One was a musaf. One was chayvas hayom, exclusively in response to the Yom Kippur aspect of Yom Kippur. So it's really two single elim which are not really related to each other. Lafuki atzeres, as opposed to Shavuos, where over there the two elim were a pair, were brought for the same reason, for the same purpose. The tarvayu chayvas hayominu. They were both chayvas hayom. Rashi will explain for us that they came on account of the Shtei HaLechem. They were both serving in the same function, same capacity. So it's really a double ayil, and it's dissimilar to Miluim, where there was only one. That answers the question. The reason why we compare Yom Kippur to Miluim rather than Shavuos is because in Yom Kippur, on Yom Kippur, we had one ayil. And even according to Rabbi Shimon, it was one for the Chayvas Hayom and a different one for the Musaf. So it's one and then another one. It's not two together as a pair. And therefore it's similar to Miluim, which only featured one ayil, as opposed to Shavuos, where there were two brought together as a pair for the sake of Chayvas Hayom. Let's see Rashi. So it's right off to the right from where we're holding in the Gemara, about 2-3 lines up. Done in par echad vayil echad. Explains Rashi, we draw a parallel from Miluim to Yom Kippur. Avodas Musaf Yom Kippurim had par echad vayil echad. V'avodas Shmini l'Miluim also had par echad vayil echad k'techsiv kach lecha egel ben bakel lechatas. And it says v'ayil, so there was a egel, which is a calf, we're calling it a par, and then kem an ayil. So the one says, well, that works if Yom Kippur only had one ayil. And that's Rebbe, who says, ayil echad, who shayikar ben tzibah b'yom kippurim, hu ha'amr kan, b'achim mois, me'ez adas b'nei Yisrael, likach shnei s'ire izim lechatas, v'ayil echad oilam. So it's that one mentioned over here in Achri Mois, who ha'amr b'ch Pinchas l'musaf, that's the same one mentioned in Parshas Pinchas, amongst the list of the Karbanos Musaf. But according to Rabbi Shimon, who says that there are two Elam, then it's no longer similar to Miluim? That was the Gemara's question. The Gemara answered, no. Each one is a separate entity. Hasam chad l'chayvas hayom. Hahu, the ayil mentioned in Achrei Mois, chayvas hayom, v'enekori musaf. That's not a musaf. V'lo ksiv hasam mavad oilas haboiker. Over there, the pasuk doesn't say, well, bring this in addition to the oilas haboiker, the standard tamid, which is generally the way the pasuk would describe a karban musaf. This is an expanded routine. The mashma, which indicates zemaisif al devar yom b'yameh. Musaf means add, supplement to the standard routine. In Parshas Achrei Mois, when the Torah makes reference to the ayil, it's without this additional explanation and description. This is a musaf. This is a supplement to the standard routine. What does that tell us? What does it tell us about this ayil? That it's not a musaf, it's chayvas hayayim, to bring kapara. It's unique and exclusive to Yom Kippur. To address the Yom Kippur aspect of today. So again, on Yom Kippur, we have one for chayvas hayayim, and one for a musaf, the expanded routine, as opposed to on Shavuos, where they're both serving the same capacity. Chayvas hayayim. They come on account of the two lechem. So these are a pair of elam brought on account of chayvas hayayim to address the unique nature and flavor of Shavuos. And it's a pair being brought together, two elam. That's different than miluim. It was only one ayil. So that's why we prefer comparing Yom Kippur to miluim rather than Shavuos. Continues the Gemara. The Ema Rosh Hashanah, 4 lines from the bottom. What about Rosh Hashanah? Why don't we apply the concept of Prisha before Rosh Hashanah instead of Yom Kippur? The Ema Rosh Hashanah, the Prisha Shiva, the Emechadu. Here we have the bill. Fit the bill. 7 days prior to a one-day event. It's a once-a-year event, time-related. Karbonos, 7 for 1 day. Amar Ravo. There's a reason. Done in the par of Ayel Shalai. You see, on Yom Kippur, as well as by the Miluim, we had something unique. There were some karbonos which were privately funded by the Kohen Gadol himself. It was his personal kapara, his personal expense. And it's something we find exclusively by Yom Kippur and Miluim. That's why we compare the two. Done in par of Ayel Shalai, we learn Yom Kippur, which featured this unique concept, where it was a par and an ayil that belonged to the Kohen Gadol. And we learn Yom Kippur from Miluim, Mipar of Ayil Shalai, which also had this unique feature. There was a par and ayil that belonged to Aaron HaKohen. Therefore, we compare the two. La'afuki Atzeres Rosh Hashanah as opposed to Atzeres Rosh Hashanah. The Tzibur Ninu, all karbanos, they were publicly funded karbanos. In which case, it's this similar to Miluim, and we don't compare it. Let's see Rashi, 3 lines from the bottom. Done in par of Ayil Shalai. The Miluim Mishalayu. The par and ayil brought by the Miluim belonged to him. T'chsev kach l'cha egel. Ubim b'kipurim nami. Ika par v'ayil Mishalai. There as well in Kippur we find there was a certain par, a certain ayil which belonged to him. But Zeis Yavei Aaron al Kodesh, B'Abram Bakar, and the pasuk says Asher Lo afterwards, so it's his. La'fuki Atzeres Rosh Hashanah Tzibur Ninu. They're paid for by the public funded, and it's different than Yom Kippur. So according to Ravo, the reason why we don't include Rosh Hashanah or Shavuos in this equation, we prefer Yom Kippur because Yom Kippur has something similar, something unique that mirrors the Miluim. We had a par and ayil which were privately funded and paid for by the Kohen Gadol. And as Rashi brings, the pasuk kach l'cha, which indicates that it's yours. By Miluim, he had to personally fund this carbon. Says the Gemara, but we have a machlekes whether or not this carbon was paid for by the Kohen Gadol. This works out according to the Shita who says kach l'cha. Whenever it says kach l'cha, it means meshacha. You have to pay for it. Or when it says va'asei l'cha, this was by the Chatzoitres, where Hashem instructs Moshe to fashion 2 trumpets of silver. It says, I say l'cha. There as well, it's a lashon yachad mishalcha. It's personal. You have to pay for it. So according to the Shita, yeah, the equation works. By Miluim, by Yom Kippur, we have some karbanos which were paid for by the Kohen Gadol. So we have that connection, that similarity. But according to the Shita who holds that even when the pasuk seems to be referring to him personally, kach lacha, aseh lacha, doesn't really mean literally he's going to pay for it. Of course, the tzibur pays for it. If that's the case, then the whole arrangement falls apart. Michael Amemar. And why? Why do you prefer comparing Yom Kippur to Miluim? We don't have that factor any longer. That personal factor doesn't exist. The Sanya. Where do we find this machlekes? Kach lacha mishalcha. When it says kach lacha, it means you pay for it. Vasei lacha, you pay for it. Mishalcha. V'yikhoy lacha. That's a lashon rabbim. They will bring mishal tzibur. The Rabbi Yashia who draws that distinction between lashon yachid, which indicates it's your personal expense, it's your personal offering, whereas when the pasuk says lashon rabbim, it means everybody contributes. Rabbi Yehuda says no. It's irrelevant what terminology the pasuk uses. Ben kach lecha, ben v'ikhoy lecha, mishal tzibur always means that the tzibur participates. Why then did the Torah use a lashon yachid? What's the point of saying lecha? Hashem is just expressing, so to speak, his wish. It's difficult to say, but it's an expression of Hashem's wish. I actually would prefer, if possible, that the tzibur would make use with your carbon. Moshe Rabbeinu or the Kohen Gadol, who stands higher, who's a greater tzaddik. Gemara soon will tell us it's referring to a situation where the tzibur, Klal Yisrael, are not behaving properly. So Hashem is merely using that term to indicate the fact that he favors the tzaddik. And I wish it could be just yours, but really it's not. Of course, technically speaking, it has to be publicly funded. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, even when we have a lashon yachid like kach lacha, aseh lacha, in reality, everybody would pay for it. As the Gemara explains further, Abachan Amar, Mishum Rabbi Lezer, we have a contradiction. Kosav echad oimer, one pasuk says, by the building of the Mishkan, the Aron, which contained the Luchos, Vasisa lacha, Aron eitz. You should make it. It sounds like you're paying for it. V'kosav echad oimer, so you, Moshe Rabbeinu, should pay for it. V'kosav echad oimer, another pasuk says, Vasu, Aron atei shitim. They should do it. They should make it. They should pay for it. How does this work? Halkeitzad, how do we reconcile? When Klal Yisrael fulfilling the Ratzon of Hashem, then Hashem is pleased with the fact that they're contributing. But when Klal Yisrael are not behaving, not fulfilling the Ratzon of Hashem, then Hashem, so to speak, prefers that the kalim, the avoid in the Beis Mikdash, not be attributed to them. So it's really just an expression of an attitude, but practically speaking, according to Rabbi Yehuda, everybody would pay for everything. That's the case. Then we no longer have that reason to prefer Yom Kippur over Rosh Hashanah or Shavuos. Right? The Gemara was trying to answer why is it that we compare Yom Kippur to Miluim with respect to the Prisha Shiva, because on Yom Kippur, like Miluim, there was a carbon which was funded by Aaron HaKohen, by the Kohen Gadol, as opposed to the other Yom Tovim, whose carbonis were publicly funded. Says the Gemara, according to this shita of Rabbi Yehuda, it's never the case. It's always going to be funded by the tzibur. Answers the Gemara, Ad kan loy pligi. You know when this machlokes applies? Ela b'kichas the alma. When we have a term kach v'yikchu, a general term, vasiyas the alma, or generally when the pasuk discusses doing and making, then we have this machlokes. For instance, kicha is the alma. Where do we find the lashon kicha? Kach lecha samim. Take for yourself the fragrances, the various ingredients used in making the besamim. So we have a lashon kach lecha. Here we have a machlokes. According to one shita, it means literally you're going to pay for it. It's going to be your private thing. Whereas the other shita says no. Even though it says kach lecha, it's merely an expression of Hashem's wish that He prefers, the tzaddik's contribution, but practically everybody will contribute. So that's the example of kicha is dam. What about asiyah is dam? Generally, when we find the term of asiyah, There as well we have a machlekes, and what will be an example of that? Aseh lecha shtei chatzotzros kesef. Hashem instructs Moshe, make lecha, which sounds like you pay for it, make the 2 silver trumpets. So you have machlekes, whether lecha means you're going to pay for it, or it means everybody will contribute equally. That's a general machlekes. Aval hanach, but over here, by Miluim, by Yom Kippur, all agree that these karbanis were paid for by the Kohen Gadol. Why? The Torah said so clearly. Perusha k'mefarish the mashalchahu. The Torah clearly explains itself that Hashem wants it to be funded by Aaron HaKohen, by the Kohen Gadol. B'miluim michti ksiv. Let's take a look at Miluim. Michti. Let's analyze. Ksiv. The pasuk says, "Vel bnei Yisrael tedaber lemar kichu sir izin lachatas." So tell Yisrael that bring the sir izin lachatas. So kchu is a plural, lashon rab. Everybody should contribute to it. Then we have another pasuk which says, "Vayomer al Aaron kach lecha egel bebakel lachatas." Normally, why this contrast, this discrepancy in terminology? Here we have lashon rabim, here lashon yochad. Apparently, the Torah is making a point here. Shema mina. It's pretty evident that kach lecha means literally mishal chahu. There's no question there. There's no machlekes that by the Miluim, these specific karbanis were paid for by Aaron HaKohen. Likewise, B'Yom Kippurim. Michti, let's see. Ksiv bezois yovai Aaron HaKodesh beparben bakel lechatos. And the pasuk says, "Meis adas bnei Yisrael yikach shnei siris lechatos," which means that everybody's going to pay for it. Meis adas bnei Yisrael. Then what do we find afterwards? V'hikriv es parachatas asher loy. That the par is his. What do you mean his? We just said everybody's going to give it. Lamali. What does asher loy mean? How do you understand that? Why this difference in relating to it? This contrast in terminology. Shema mina. We conclude from this. Hay loy mishaloyu. Loy means it's his. He pays for it. It's funded by Aaron HaKohen. So that explains why we choose to compare Yom Kippur to Miluim rather than Shavuos, Rosh Hashanah, because on Yom Kippur, like Miluim, we have karbanis which are paid for exclusively by Aaron HaKohen, by the Kohen Gadol. Let's see Rashi inside, up on top of the Amud. V'asei lecha, k'may asei lecha shtei chatzotzos kesef. This is an example of asei lecha, where it would seem Hashem wants Moshe to pay for it. So that's one shita. Rabbi Yeshua says, lecha means you pay for it, you fund it. Whereas Rabbi Yehuda says, it's irrelevant whether we have kach lecha or v'yikchu lecha, it all means one and the same. Everybody contributes equally. The reason why the Torah expresses itself in a very personal way is kavayachal. Rashi has 2 pshatim. Ani shamati, Rashi says, I heard from my Rebbeim, kavayachal means kivayachal. If it could work, I wish it would work. If the tzibur could be able to have the kapara using a privately funded korban, funded by the tzaddik, by the Kohen Gadol, by Moshe Rabbeinu, I would have wanted that. So according to this, kivi yachal means if it could work. Yachal means it works. If it's possible, I would want this. Rashi has another pshat. Vani Oimer, Rashi himself offers the next pshat. Kivi yachal is just a term, it's a euphemism. It's like saying chas v'shalom. It's difficult to say it. We're saying it, although it's difficult, it's like a disclaimer. It sounds harsh, saying that Hashem doesn't really want Yisrael's contribution. That's why we add that word. It's against as well. He doesn't really want to say it. It's like, it's hard to say it. We find this word kaviyachal many times. Important to remember that according to this pshat Rashi, kaviyachal is just like saying chas v'shalom. I'm going to say it, I'm going to express it as a wish, but it's really not practical. It's really not something I'd like to say. So according to first pshat, kaviyachal means if it would work, I would want it. Kaviyachal. If it's yachal, fine. But really, it's not yachal because bottom line is that the Korban Tzibur has to be publicly funded. But if it would work, I would want it. Second definition, second pshat is, it's just a term. Kaviyachal means, it's difficult to say, but I'm just expressing it as a wish. And Rashi says, this word Kaviyachal is actually found many times in Shas, and it would mean as such. And the more continues, that according to Rabbi Yonasan, Klal Yisrael always contributes equally to the Karbanis. The reason why the pasuk refers to it as Moshe's Lacha, because when Yisrael are not behaving properly, then the Hashem prefers that they don't have a chelik. But when they are Oisen Yitzhak Shel Mokim, then the avodah is Nikus Hashmam, it's attributed to them. Hashem is proud. The fact that Klal Yisrael are contributing to the Kalim, to the Mishkan, to the Beis Hamikdash, to the avodah. The Gemara responded, Ad kan le pligi tirutzu. Generally, we have a machlekes, but here we find that the Torah stresses and clearly emphasizes that it's the Kohen Gadol paying. Kach lecha lamali. Lamali d'shanei krobi diburi. Why does the Torah change its approach? Mimashas l'daber. We have that contrast in the Lashonis. On one pasuk we have a Lashon Rab, in another pasuk we have Lashon Yachid, which clearly tells us that it's the Kohen Gadol who personally pays for these korbanos. An interesting kasha from the Rashash. The Gemara had an example of Kach lecha samim. Moshe Rabbeinu used to be the one contributing the ingredients for the Keteris. Asks the Rashash, well, how does that work? A Korban Tzibur has to be paid for by the public. You can't just donate and have the Tzibur use it. So the Aseh lecha shtei chatzotos, that works. That wasn't a korban. That could be Moshe Rabbeinu's personal trumpet. It doesn't have to be a Korban Tzibur, but the Keteris was a Korban Tzibur. So I saw some Farshim say that apparently it was given over to the Tzibur. We had a discussion back in Masechah Shkolm. There is such a concept of a person donating and giving over wholeheartedly to the Tzibur, and apparently the Gemara at this point figures that works. So although Moshe Rabbeinu was the one who donated it, but then he gave it over to the Tzibur, and it is now regarded as a Korban Tzibur. Okay, continues the Gemara. Rav Ashi Omar. Back to the question. Miluim provides the source for Prishas Shiva Yomim in anticipation of a one-day event. We apply that to Yom Kippur. Why Yom Kippur? Why not Rosh Hashanah? Why not Shavuos? Rav Ashi will offer another teretz. Rav Ashi Omar Donin Par Lachatas V'Ayloil. You see, in both cases, Yom Kippur and Miluim, we have a par which was a chatas and an aisle for an oil. So we have that connection. And therefore we learn one from the other. Donin, we learn Yom Kippur, which has a par lachatas, v'ayil oil. From Miluim, which also featured that element, in par lachatas, v'ayil oil. La'afuke, as opposed to Rosh Hashanah, v'atzeres, the tavayu oilos ninu, although they also have a par and aisle, but they're both oilo. And therefore it's this similar to Miluim. That's another teretz, and teretz actually points out that we find many tirutzim here. We had Rav Ava who explained why we're not going to include Atzeres in the deal. We had Rabbi Vo who said why Atzeres Rosh Hashanah not included. And now we have Rav Ashi who says why we prefer Yom Kippur over Rosh Hashanah and Shavuos. And now we're going to have Ravina coming up soon, who's going to explain why is it that Yom Kippur is preferred over other Yom Tovim. And Tosfos simply points out that apparently they were presented, all these Amoraim were presented, this question in different ways. And therefore they sought to address the question as it was presented to them. For instance, Rav Ava was asked regarding Shavuot, so he responded accordingly. Rav Vo responded regarding Rosh Hashanah. And Rav Ashi responded regarding Rosh Hashanah and Atzeres, and Ravina will respond regarding all Yom Tovim. So they were presented the question in that way, and they responded accordingly. Because really, some of these answers can apply to the other Yom Tovim as well, but they were simply addressing the question as it was presented to them. Continues the Ravina Amar. He has another pshat. The reason why we choose Yom Kippur over all other Yom Tovim. Donin avoid the Kohen Gadol. This is very straightforward. Because Yom Kippur and Miluim have something very unique in common. On both days, the avodah is only kosher if it's done by Kohen Gadol. Therefore, done and we learn Yom Kippur, which is avodah b'Kohen Gadol. From Miluim, me avodah b'Kohen Gadol. La'afuki kulu kushyasin, as opposed to all other questions posed, the other Yom Tovim, the law avodah b'Kohen Gadol nenu. On those days, it wasn't necessarily an avodah performed by the Kohen Gadol. So Miluim is unique in a sense that you prepare for that special day of avodah, which could only be done by Kohen Gadol, which propelled it to a much higher realm. Likewise, Yom Kippur, it had that avodah on a higher level, done by Kohen Gadol, and those days need a 7-day preparation. That's one approach of Ravina. There's another version of Ravina's teretz. Ravina. Donen, we learn Yom Kippur from Miluim, because Yom Kippur is avodah tchila. It's a first time avodah. The Gemara will explain what this means. Donen avodah tchila. We learn it from Miluim, which also was may avodah tchila had a newness to it, a new type of avodah. Lafokiyani, as opposed to the other days of the year, other Yom Tovim, the lav tchilaninu, they don't have this newness. What does that mean? My tchila. What did he mean by tchila? The first time that a Kohen Gadol did the avodah. So we compare Yom Kippur to Miluim, because just like by the Miluim, on the 8th day, it was the first time that the avodah was done by a Kohen Gadol, first time in history. Aaron HaKohen doing the avodah on the 8th day of Miluim was the first time in history. Avodah was done by a Kohen Gadol. And we compare that to Yom Kippur, which, at least on the first Yom Kippur in history, it was the first time the avodas tzibur, the korbanos tzibur, needed to be brought by Kohen Gadol. So they have that thing in common. And therefore we compare Yom Kippur to Miluim. So again, my tchila, what does he mean by the first? Ilam tchila b'Kohen Gadol, the first time a Kohen Gadol did the avodah. Hainu kamaisa, wasn't that what we just mentioned in the first version of Ravina? That's exactly what he said a minute ago. That Yom Kippur and Miluim are similar in a sense because they're both involving the Kohen Gadol. Says more Ella, rather in the second version, he meant like this. We learn Prisha by Yom Kippur, because Yom Kippur involves avodah tchila b'makom. It involves a firstness with respect to an avodah done the first time in that place. The first Yom Kippur was actually the first time in history there was avodah, there was korbanos in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. So the avodah of Yom Kippur inaugurated, kicked off, triggered the avodah in that place, in the localfile, the Kodesh HaKadoshim. It was the first time in history. And therefore we compare that, we derive that from Miluim, which was also a first in its location. Me avodah tchila b'mokem. Because on the 8th day of Miluim, it was the first time that there was true avodah in the Mishkan altogether. Mizbeach HaChitzon, the first time in history that there was a true avodah performed by Kohanim on the Mizbeach HaChitzon. So we have a connection, a comparison between Yom Kippur, which had firstness in its respective place, to Miluim, which has firstness in its respective place. That's what makes them special, unique. And the prisha that applies to Miluim applies to Yom Kippur, not only on that first Yom Kippur, but throughout history. Once it's been established as a practice of Yom Kippur, it's applied throughout history as well. Just stop for a moment and make a quick chazara of the previous Gemara. We learn that the Kohen Gadol would be prepared 7 days in advance. He had a prisha shiva liyoim echad, 7-day prisha in anticipation of a 1-day event. We learn this from Miluim to Yom Kippur. And the question is, why dafka Yom Kippur? What about the other opportunities, the other Yom Tovim? Let's go down the list. Why not Shmini Atzeres? So the Gemara tells us because Miluim and Yom Kippur both are days which have no Kedusha Lefanov. They're not preceded by days of Kedusha, as opposed to Shmini Atzeres, which has Kedusha Lefanov. The whole Yom Tov of Sukkot precedes it. According to the second teretz of the Gemara, if Sukkot doesn't have Prisha, because it's a 7-day event, that certainly doesn't conform, you cannot say Shmini Atzeres will have Prisha, because it's only a tafel to Sukkot. It can't stand higher. It can't be highly regarded higher than Sukkot itself. It's merely a tafel to Sukkot. So that cancels out Shmini Atzeres. What about Shavuos Atzeres? Gemara tells us because unlike Milu and Yom Kippur, which had only one aisle, on Shavuos we had two. What about Atzeres Rosh Hashanah? Another teretz in the Gemara to explain why we don't apply Prisha to those days, because unlike Milu and Yom Kippur, which both have a par and aisle which were purchased and funded by the Kohen Gadol, the other Yom Tov don't have that. It is publicly funded. But another teretz, why not Shavuos and Rosh Hashanah? The reason was because unlike Milu and Yom Kippur, where the par is L'chatas and Ayla Oyla, on those days we have a par and Ayla which are both Oylas. Ravina's pshat was, what makes Miluim and Yom Kippur so unique and comparable to each other? So according to the first teretz, because in both, the avodah has to be performed exclusively by the Kohen Gadol, as opposed to other Yom Tovim where Kohen Heded can do the avodah. According to the second pshat, because by both Yom Kippur and Miluim, it was an avodah tchila b'makom. It started off the avodah, it inaugurated an avodah in a specific place. First time avodah was done in that place. Whether the Mishkan at all, on the 8th day of Miluim, whether Yom Kippur, which inaugurates the avodah of the Lefnim Kodesh HaKadoshim, as opposed to all the Yom Tovim, which don't have that feature of tchila b'makom. Continues the Gemara. Ki Yasser Rav Dimi. When Rav Dimi came, Omar, he said like this: Rabbi Yehuda Masni Chada. We have the pasuk by Miluim, which says that this same procedure, the Prisha Shiva Liyemechad, applies elsewhere as well. We had this back on the base, Kashur Asa B'Yom Hazeh, just as was done today. Tziva Hashem Lasois L'chaper Aleichem, which indicates that this process will apply down the road throughout history as well. Says Rav Dimi, according to Rabbi Yehuda, we only learn one thing from Miluim. Chad, only one. Which is what? Yom Kippur. Rabbi Shulman Levi Masni Tarti. He derived two things from there. As the Gemara explains. Rabbi Yehuda Masni Chada, he only learned one. Lasas L'chaper Elo Mas Yom Kippur. We only include Yom Kippur into this procedure, into this requirement. So we don't learn the Prisha preceding to the Paraduma from this pasuk. Only Yom Kippur. As opposed to Reish Lakish, the Gersa of Reish Lakish, Masni, Tarti. He learns both things from this pasuk. La'asa is Elu Masi Para, L'chaper Elu Masi Yom Kippurim, as we have back on the Beis Amarav. So according to Reish Lakish, both things are learned from this pasuk. So according to this Gersa, we have to switch the first time as well. A couple lines back, Reish Lakish Masni Tarti. So it's a machlokes between Reish and Reish Lakish. According to Rabbi Yehuda, only Yom Kippur is learned from this pasuk. According to Reish Lakish, both Yom Kippur and Paraduma. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda Masni Chada, he only learns Yom Kippur. V'anan Shivas Yomim Koidim Yom Kippurim. And now Mishnah we learned about Yom Kippur. And we have another Mishnah. The Shivas Yomim Koidim Shivas HaPara. 7 days prior to the Shivas Paraduma, they did Prisha. So both things are true. Says Mala Ba'almu, which is a Mala. There's additional stringencies that we applied to Paraduma. It wasn't Me'ikar Hadin. Me'ikar Hadin, this only applies to Yom Kippur, as is indicated in that pasuk. Paraduma was just a enhancement that the Chacham applied. Says the Gemara, how could you say that according to Rabbi Yehuda, only Yom Kippur is learned from that same pasuk? Va'amar ben Yumi, bar Chalki, Amar Mechasi, Baridi, Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Kasher Sabayam Hazeh Tziva Hashem Lasois L'chaper Aleichem. This is the pasuk by Miluim and Rabbi Yehuda himself. Darshan like this: Lasois Elamasi Par, L'chaper Elamasi Yom Kippurim. Apparently, it applies to both. How the Rabbi? That was quoting his Rebbe. But he himself held that it only applies to Yom Kippur and Mikra Adin. Where do you find that Rabbi Yechanan's Rebbe held of this drasha? The Chiyasa Ravin, when Ravin came, Omar, he said like this: Rabbi Yechanan Mishum Bishmo. He said, name of Rabbi Yechanan, who quoted his Rebbe Bishmo. Lasis Elamasi Para, Lachaper Elamasa Yom Kippur. Indeed, Rabbi Shmuel, who was Rabbi Yechanan's Rebbe, applied this pasuk to both. Rabbi Yechanan himself only applied it to Yom Kippur and Mikra Adin. Prisha is only required on Yom Kippur. Paraduma was done as an enhancement, as a mala. Okay, your source for Prisha, at least by Yom Kippur, is from where? From Miluim. Okay. Ima Miluim. If that's the case, you have to compare it completely to Miluim. And just like by Miluim, anything which is said there, anything that the Torah describes as part of the Miluim process, is needed, is critical. Av Hochanami, here as well. By Yom Kippur, since you're comparing it to Miluim, we should say the same. Anything that's written here by Yom Kippur is Ma'akiv. If that's the case, then Prishas Shiva Yomim Kodim Kippurim is absolutely vital. And if it's not done, then the kohen is possible for the avodah. Is that so? If you propose that that's really the case, I have a kasha from the Mishnah. Mishnah begins by saying, Shiva Yomim Kodim Kippurim, Marfish Gadol Beis. So Prisha was done for the kohen gadol. Okay, but then the Mishnah continues. We designate a skan, a vice, kohen gadol, as a back. Why? Perhaps the kohen gadol will become possible, become tummy. Now, what happens to the kohen gadol's tummy? The backup will step in, but he didn't have prisha of 7 days. Mishnah doesn't describe prisha for him, just as maskin, like they appoint another kohen as a backup. Says if you'll say that prisha is ma'akiv, what does the Mishnah say? Vatzanan u'maskinen like kohen acher. They merely designate another kohen as a replacement. Like Tani Mafrishin, we don't find that they would be mafresh that kohen as well. So how could he do the avodah? How could he step in as a backup if he never had the hafrasha procedure done to him? So you'll say that the word maskinen and mafrishin are really interchangeable. Maskinen means mafrishin. He also had to undergo that procedure. That's the case. And why that difference in terminology? First, the Mishnah begins that mafresh the kohen gadol, and then when we speak about the backup, we're maskin. Why that gap in expression? Listen, oi idividi maskin. Mishnah should have said in both cases, maskinin, oi or idividi mafrishin. On both accounts, mafrishin. Apparently, hafrasha is not ma'akiv. It's only chatchila. It was done for the kohen gadol, but they didn't bother doing it for the backup. For that slight chance that it's going to be needed, they didn't trouble him to have to go through the process of hafrasha. And this is a steer to you, Rabbi Yechanan. This is Rish Lakish challenging Rabbi Yechanan. If your source of hafrasha, Shivas Yom, is from Miluim, just as over there it's ma'akiv, here as well it should be ma'akiv. And it doesn't sound like that from now Mishnah. Rabbi Yechanan responded, Elamar mehecha yalafla. Okay, so you, where do you learn it from, if not from Miluim? Amar mi Sinai. I learned it from Har Sinai. Techsiv vayishkein kved Hashem al Har Sinai. Vayichaseu ha'onon sheishes yamim. The covenant Hashem rested in Har Sinai. The cloud covered it for 6 days. Vayikra al Moshe bayim hashvi. Hashem called out to Moshe on the 7th day. Michte, let's analyze. Ksiv vayikra al Moshe bayim hashvi. Once the pasuk says that Hashem calls out to him on the 7th day, Mai sheishes yamim. Why mention that the cloud covered for 6 days? It's pretty obvious. You don't have to say that it was 6 days if it already says on the 7th day he was called. Pretty obvious that it was preceded by 6 days. So we have some extra wording here to teach us something, to give us a precedent which is meant to be applied elsewhere. This provides an example to anybody who's about to enter a higher realm, like here Moshe Rabbeinu was preparing to spend 40 days with Hashem to receive the luchas. And likewise, Kohen Gadol preparing for the Avodah of Yom Kippur, when he will enter the Kodesh HaKodashim, or the Kohen preparing for the Paraduma, which was also a very lofty process. We know that the Paraduma is called Chatas. It has the highest level of Kedusha amongst all the Karbanis. So we learn from Har Sinai, Shekol Hanichnas Machne Shechina, anybody preparing to enter Machne Shechina, Ton Prishas Shisha, needs to separate and prepare himself appropriately for 6 days in advance of that event. So this is my makar, says Rish Lakish. And from here I learn to Yom Kippur. From Sinai I learn to Paraduma. It's a nice thing, but it's not ma'akiv. And therefore, if it's not done, it doesn't invalidate the avodah. Says when we have Omo Kasha. On Har Sinai, he had 6 days of preparation. Moshe Rabbeinu was covered by the Anan, waited there for 6 days to purify himself, to elevate himself. V'anan shivatna. But now Mishnah here on Yom Kippur and here by Paraduma, we have a 7-day Prisha. How do you get to 7? Says you're right. The 7th day was added due to an additional concern, due to a tumah concern. Masnis Rabbi Yehuda Kessler. It's following that shita. The chayish l'tumah space is concerned that the kohen might become tamei through interaction with his wife, which might result in a 7-day tumah. Therefore, we separate him from his wife, from his family, for 7 days to preempt that sort of possibility. Let's see Rashi on top. L'tumah space. Who concerned Shema imizachik le'ishtef will have tashmish with his wife. V'tira dam v'tiraspia, and she'll have dam right then. V'nimtza tamish v'asyamim. We know that the nida status of the isha jumps onto the husband. So now I'll have a 7-day tumah, k'mishpat boil nida, v'lo yochel avd b'yom kippur, which will prevent him from doing the avodah Yom Kippur. Therefore, we add an extra day. So in Ikra Adin, 6 days are really sufficient, but we add that added day on the 6th, which are mandated min HaTorah, in order to account for this tumah possibility. Okay, so in conclusion, we discussed the Prishas Kohen and Yom Kippur and Sefer Zapara. We have 2 opinions as to the source. According to Rabbi Yehuda, his own shita, the day, is that Miluim teaches us regarding Yom Kippur. The word Lachaper is referring to the Kapar of Yom Kippur. Regarding preparing for the Paraduma, that's only a Mala, that's not Ikar Adin. In the name of his Rebbe, we learn that actually Miluim provides a makar for both halachas, Yom Kippur and preparing for the Paraduma. According to Rish Lakish, both are learned from Har Sinai. That takes care of the 6 days. What about the added 7th day? That's an account of a concern, a chashash of tumah space. Okay, let's recap today's daf. We learned about the prisha of Shivas Yomim, Koydem Yom Kippurim. The Gemara wants to know why Dafki Yom Kippur. The Gemara knows that we learn it from Miluim, where we find a pasuk which tells us apply this procedure elsewhere as well. L'chaper. L'chaper is the day of Kapara. We assume it to be referring to the Karbanos of Yom Kippur. Why Yom Kippur? Why not Shminat Tzeres, Shavuos, etc.? So let's go down the line. Gemara tells us Yom Kippur and Miluim have some similarities which are not found throughout the year. There's no Kedusha Lefanov. They're not preceded by days of Kedusha as opposed to Shminat Tzeres, which has Kedusha Lefanov. In both cases we find one Eil as opposed to Shavuos, which have 2 Eilim. We have Parva Eil, which the Kohen Gadol brings, as opposed to Atzeres from Shoshana, where the Tzibah brings it. We find that it's a Parla Chatas V'Eil Oila, as opposed to Atzeres from Shoshana, which are both Oilas. And finally, according to Ravina, on both days the Avodah has to be done exclusively by the Kohen Gadol. It also inaugurates a new type of Avodah, a new Mokim of Avodah, and that we don't find throughout other Yom Tov. We went back to the Mokar of the Halacha of Prisha, and we have several approaches. According to Rabbi Yehuda, his own shita, Miluim provides Yom Kippur as Prisha, Paraduma is only a Maila. According to his Rebbe, both are derived from Miluim. According to Rish Lakish, both are learned from Moshe Rabbeinu's preparation for joining Hashem at Har Sinai. Hatzlacha Rabban, all the best to you.